Recording?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, in this class, till our last class, the main focus was to create C++ classes. We took the example of stack, writing a stack class, and we mainly focused on different ways of constructing a stack object. What we found that there is a special method called constructor, which we can use to construct objects. Speciality is its name should be same as that of the class name, and once we have a constructor, it's a good practice to always have a destructor also, even though it is not doing anything meaningful when there is no pointer variable as a member data. Now the destructors will have the name tilde with the tilde and then the class name. So we found that we can have different ways of initializing when we create the objects, and we can go for dynamic allocation also. In that case also, the constructor can be invoked by passing different values in as initial values. One specific point that we noted, even though we don't write a constructor while we write a class definition, even then object can be constructed, and in that case the compiler invokes a constructor which is implicit or which is by default provided by the compiler itself. So in that case you definitely cannot do too many things. It's basically its task is to allocate space corresponding to the members of the object, the members that it has got. So corresponding to each member it will allocate some space, and as a whole some space will be allocated to the entire object. So that is what it does. So that part is always done. I mean, that is a trivial kind of step, but constructors are explicitly written. We don't rely on default constructors in the case when we would like to initialize members also. Okay, so then we cannot rely on default constructors because that is not doing anything beyond space allocation. Another reason or another case where you I mean you cannot simply consider default constructors if you have got a reference variable. If there is a reference variable as a member, if there is a member which is a reference member, so we know that references must be initialized. So if the references are to be initialized, so any initialization can be done only by writing explicit constructors. So then also you have to write a constructor because references should not be left uninitialized. So that was the case. So in this class we'll see that how an object can be created from some existing object. Okay, as we write int, say for example, say I've got int x comma 5, and then you are trying to create y. So you can consider that x is an integer object, y is a integer object. So I'm trying to construct y by initializing y as x. So that means this integer object y is initialized to some existing integer object x. Okay, so this is what I want. So same in case of stack. Say if I had s1, say of which takes argument say 4 of size 4, a stack, then I would like to have another stack, and
Sir?
then you made some. Yes.
Sir.
So your screen is not visible, sir.
Why?
Yes, sir. Sir, screen is not visible.
Oh, I forgot to, I think, share the
Sharing
screen. Sorry.
screen.
Sharing screen. So you should have mentioned it. I thought that everything was fine. Now is that okay? Can you see the screen now?
Sir, yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So if I have got this integer x and y, so here y got initialized to x. I mean, so we initialize y with respect to x. So the same if I would like to do using the user defined classes. So I have say s1 which is of size 4, then I say I write s1 dot push, I push something, then I push something. Now if I would like to create another stack object, say s2, and I would like to, and if I write something like this, what does it mean? What is my intention if I do like this? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
What is the intention here?
Sir, to copy the contents
An
of
assignment.
into S2.
So here this s1 is, it was an existing object, it was already got created, and we had to push. So this s1, it contains say 40 and say 60. This was s1. Now I would like to create s2. Earlier what I did in my examples, I tried s2, I just mentioned only the space required, and in one constructor I just mentioned one element, that much. So that much variation was there. Now I want to construct an object s2 which is similar to that of s1. Okay, so when I construct s2, it should come up with something like this. So s2 initially it was, I mean, till now the way I have constructed it, it was a blank, or it may have something like this. But now I would like to have s2 something like this, which is same as this one. Is that fine? So I'm trying to initialize an object from another existing object. So that is a purpose. Got the point?
Yes, sir.
So what is the other way of writing this? The same can be written as stack s2. I can write this syntax also. This is same as writing s2 s1. Is that okay? So either you write this, so this is normal initialization. So generally in case of this also you can write int y x. So this syntax is same as this. So both are same. Okay. So either you write this one or you write this one, the purpose is the same. You are trying to initialize an object from another object. Now let's see how it works. Can you see this? So here there is something like, you see, we have got, what is this? This b. So I've got a pointer variable p pointing to int, and then I've got another integer variable a, and this is b. What is this b? Hello?
Reference. So
It's a reference. So once I add a reference, this need to be initialized during the construction of any object belonging to XYZ type, right? So I cannot simply rely on default constructor. So if I don't write a constructor, this program will not work simply. It will say that you have not initialized the reference. Okay, so this will not allow me. So I have added one constructor. This is a constructor. What is a constructor? So constructor name is the same, xyz. So this is the prototype of the constructor. Here I am defining the details of it. So in text it accepts one integer, doesn't matter how I use it, it's just a dummy code. Now this is how I initialize b. I think some time back I tried that, but due to some syntax problem, I don't know what happened, it didn't work. Okay, so this is the syntax, and I think today it will work. So I give a colon and I write b of a, so that means b is initialized to a. You just now got the syntax. So this syntax is the same. So this is same as writing this, assigning. So initialization, this is same as that. So that's why I can write this. Okay, and this is called, so this is called the initializer list. I can write separating by comma multiple other initialization steps also. So that's why it is called a initializer list, and because it's a part of the constructor, it's called a constructor initializer list. Okay, what I'm doing, I'm just prompting this keyword this constructor, so that I know that within a constructor and this is within a destructor. Here I'm trying to allocate some space of size x, assigning it the base address to p, and then the first element of what is of the space pointed by p, I am assigning the value of x. So if it allocates an array of five integers, so the first element is assigned the value 5. So it's something like the count of number of elements, whatever, and a is assigned the value of x. So that is trivial, and the destructor simply deallocates the space. Now this fn is just a function, a public function, all of them are public. So this is just taking one value and trying to reset the value of that first element pointed by p. Okay, can you see this? So asterisk p means p plus 0 asterisk, so or p0, whatever, it's assigned the value of z. Whatever I pass, it will be reset. And displaying means I am trying to just display the first element just to see what happens. So the code is trivial, it is of no use. Just I would like to highlight the issues related to creating objects by copying from other object. So now what I'm trying to do here, xyz m10. So which constructor will be called? M10. That means what? I'm trying to construct an object M with the initial value x, integer value x. Do I have a matching constructor for this?
So XYZ INT.
So there is only one constructor and it nicely matches. So it will simply call that. And you would expect a prompt. So the constructor prompt comes. Next, I just asked to display. I have called the display function. So after I have constructed the first element of P, what value it will contain? During the construction, it has allocated the value. What value it will contain?
10.
10, because this is 10, so both that also will be 10. That's why this value is displayed. Now after doing these two, it enters this scope, an additional scope I created, and within which, what is the purpose of this? What I'm trying to do? What is the purpose? Tell me quickly, don't waste so much of time because it's unnecessarily taking time. What is this? I'm trying to create n, and also I'd like to initialize n with respect to m, the one that I tried, right?
Yes,
is that
sir.
fine? So which constructor do you think will be called? Is there any matching constructor? So now it says that when you construct m, you are passing an integer value. But what this means, what does it mean? This is equivalent to writing as n of m, right? It's equivalent to writing this. Is that fine?
Yes, sir.
So that
Yes,
means you would expect a constructor which accepts an object and then constructs a new object, right? There should be a constructor ideally which should be accepting, like this integer, it should be accepting objects of the same type and will be trying to construct a new object out of it. I mean, which is similar to that. It's a clone of that kind of thing, right? That is the intention.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
Is
sir.
there any such constructor that I have listed here apart from this one? Apart from
No,
this one, is there any constructor written? There is no constructor written, but still it will run and it will give 25 here. So how it can happen? What's the magic in it? There is no constructor here, you see, which matches with this one. So do you expect this to invoke this one? Surely not, because this constructor is only capable of constructing when you are passing an integer value, but it wants a constructor which is accepting an object itself. I have not included it, but still it works and it shows that it's 25. Why it is showing 25? because you see somehow, I mean, if I assume the constructor has the object n has been constructed from M. So how it gets constructed, first of all? What is the mystery here? Hello?
So, default copy constructor.
So we talked about default constructor, right? Earlier we talked about default constructor. If you don't have a constructor, if you just try to create an object, the default constructor will be invoked. So here also the compiler plays some role. It will create a default copy constructor for you. Okay, so here it will invoke default constructor for you. So that's purpose is to copy. So you see this is not same as the default constructor. Default constructor is of type xyz void. That will not be added to you because you have already, because the compiler knows that you know how to write constructors. So the compiler will not add it for you. That's the first thing. But the compiler adds a default copy constructor for you. Probably it feels that okay, you don't know how to write it and still you require that. So a default copy constructor is added, and because of that the construction of n is successful. And once it is successful, so after the construction, what will be the value of n? What will be the value of, say, what will be the value of p and n and all this? How it gets copied? So what are the contents of, say, m? Say this is, say, m, and say, so what m contains? How many variables it will contain? M, the object m.
3.
How many members it will contain? How many members m will contain?
3.
Louder.
3.
Why 3? After so many classes, don't say it is 3. How many values it will contain? How many members it is having?
2. Because reference is not.
Yes. So reference. Why do you counting reference as a separate entity? So this is P. So this is P and this is A or B. It doesn't matter, right? A or B. Now, once say, so let us come back to this first. So M. So within M, when it got constructed, so it has created a space. It has created a space of, say, 10 elements because you have passed 10 here, and P is pointing to that, right? And then what this A will contain in M? A will contain 10. So that was how the object M looked like, right? This was how object M looked like. Is that fine?
Yes, sir.
And what is the initial? So the first, so P0 is basically 10. That was the case. Now when you asked for creating M, asked for creating N from it, so this is, say, so N is created. Although it seems to be something mysterious, but N got created. So if N got created, a object N also will be having how many members? 2 members.
2 members.
P and A or B. So now when you copy it, so the default constructor, what is supposed to? So it will construct it, and what it will do? It will basically copy everything that is here. So it will copy everything that is here to here. That's all. So what contents it will be there? What will be the contents of this? This will be 10, right? And this value will be copied here, right? So what this object will be where this object will be pointing to? Okay, got this? Is that fine?
Yes, sir.
So this is what is called bitwise copy. So exactly one by one, all the bits will be copied from here to here. Is that part clear? So once it is there, so you basically have this kind of thing. So now after the construction, what I did, n dot fn. N dot fn means what? It will, so n dot fn. So what it does, you pass 25. So the 25 will be, so what will be the, after the execution of n dot fn, what is going to happen? Asterisk p. So p is asterisk p0 is this one, is assigned the value z. So what, how will we modify it? This value?
25.
So it will become 25, right? So now if you display n dot display, so what will you be displaying? Got this point? It displays 25. Hello?
Yes, sir.
So now what next? Now the control comes out. So that means anything that goes out of scope will be destroyed. So what is going to be destroyed here?
M will be destroyed.
N will be destroyed, right? So if n is be destroyed, so the destructor will be called. Is there a destructor written? There is a destructor, right? So it will be called. That's why this is called. See, so even though you have not written an explicit constructor, using the default constructor, the object has been created, but when it gets destroyed, it takes help of your own destructor. And it creates a whole lot of mess also out of it. Got my point? What kind of mess it is formed? So it displays destructor because this n gets destroyed and this destructor gets invoked. And what is there? Delete p. So what is going to happen at this point? If you're deleting p, what is going to happen? So anything that is pointed by p will be deleted. Is that fine?
Yes, sir.
So these gets deleted. Yes. So this gets deleted. So now what are the contents of that, of this location? So nobody knows. So the contents will be something garbage, right? So now when you come out and you write m dot display you write, that means what? M dot display. So what you are doing here, asterisk p. So asterisk p, you are trying to read something. What you are trying to read here?
Garbage value.
So that's why what it is giving here?
Some garbage value.
So this, although it is 0, but this should not be 0. So this is basically garbage, right? Now you will suddenly get stuck because you see m got 10, it never modified it. It's supposed to retain the value 10, but because it helped in the creation of n and you relied on default copy constructor, so when the n which goes out of the scope, the destructor gets called and it not only destroys the, I mean deallocates the space for its own, but it also it affects the object m. Is that part clear?
Yes, sir.
Are you getting the side effect? So this is a kind of side effect that that is getting created. So now what happens? I called, so anyway, so no more. So after that, what is this? Again, I write p of m. So what does it mean? I am trying to create another object p, initializing it from m. So this is just a different way of writing the syntax. So that's why again the default constructor will be called, right? And there is nothing visible because there is no I don't write anything explicitly. And what I have got, so at the end, how many objects are at present existing when it comes out? M and P. That's why twice destructor is called. Is that part okay?
Sir, when we called P of M,
hello?
we should also get the constructor also, no?
হ্যাঁ ওয়াসি আমি ক্লাসে আছি আমাকে পরে ফোন করো হ্যাঁ 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 সরি হ্যাঁ হোয়াটস দ্য কোয়েশ্চেন
Sir, when we called a new variable, new object, then we should get a constructor also, no, sir, for P.
Yes, that is, I'm coming to that point. So are you getting the problem first? So the thing is, if you simply write this code, it will work, but will not work the way you want it to be, right? So that is something very dangerous. So it works and it works in some in a not in a proper way, and that is dangerous. So you should be knowing that. So what is the problem? So if you have not, if you would not have a this pointer member, then would that create a problem? I mean, if you don't have a pointer member, where lies the problem? Where lies the root of the problem? Why it is creating a problem? Because you have got a pointer member. I mean, the class has got a pointer member. Any object will have a pointer member, and whenever you are copying, due to bitwise copying, it basically copies the address of the previous object to this new object, and as a result, both points to the same location. So both are basically sharing the same location, and that creates a problem. Is that fine? So we cannot allow this to happen, because this creates anomaly. Even though I have not deleted it, you see, even though I have not deconstructed it, but if I, so after doing this, after writing say n.display, if I write here m.display, what do I observe? After this n.function 25 fn25, if I write n.display, what is going to happen? You will find that m's display also got changed. So these also a side effect. Are you getting the point? Because both are tagged with the same location in the heap. Fine.
Yes,
sir.
So we need a explicit constructor, or we say that we need a copy constructor which should do it in a proper way, and we have to write it, because as you can see the compiler does only this much. So I have to I know how to do it in a proper way. So we should be writing that code. So what do I write to have this done? So let us focus on this part. So as you can see, this and this, they are the same, right? So if I have looked, if I would have liked to write this code, so what do I write here? XYZ colon XYZ. What should be the input argument of that constructor? So I'm trying to write a copy constructor, right? What should be the input argument here? Such copy constructors, what they accept?
Class
Object.
class objects.
The objects, one object of the same class, right? Of same class type, right? So how should I specify it here?
XYZ, some object name.
XYZ. So let it be called as n. Okay, and this is, so now the point is, XYZ is that enough? Is that enough? If I do this, what is going to happen? So you are passing the value of the object. So you are passing the value of n. Say here it is, say, let us call it as x. So this is an object of type x, and I am passing the value of n to x. Will it work if I write this?
No, sir.
Why it is not going to work? Why it is not going to work if I write this?
You have to call it by reference.
No, that many of you know why it is called by reference, but why it is not working? I mean, will it work? First of all, if I write this, will it work?
No, sir.
Why it will not work?
Sir, when m is passed, then in m is copied to x, then again the copy constructor is called. So in this way, copy constructor will be again and again called.
Yeah, so I mean, you are trying to, so the problem that you wanted to avoid, you are trying to create the same problem while trying to solve it, right? So the problem was, while trying to create an object from an existing object, to do it in a in a proper way, you are trying to write this copy constructor. But in doing so, if you have declared if you have performed call by value, that means this aim object will be copied to x again, and then again in doing so, it will try to have something. So it goes into a kind of repeatedly trying to solve the problem and never actually solves it, right? So is everybody getting the problem? So that's why we have to write here reference of it. So reference means, see, this is one thing where you really require reference, and without reference it's not possible. So those who say that we have not used reference in our codes till now in C++, and still we have done a lot of C++, probably you didn't write those very effective codes which involves pointers and all. And even if you have done that, you have not encountered the like similar situations where you have created an object from an existing object. Otherwise, you saw the side effect. You surely would have encountered that side effect. Because this is a case where without reference you cannot simply proceed, right? Is this possible?
No, sir.
And another point is, whenever we are passing this, so you would like to protect the integrity of this passed object, right? You don't want within the constructor the object that you are passing, whose reference you are passing, should be changed. So how to protect it from getting modified? How to ensure that it gets protected?
Const keyword.
So I write here const, right? Okay, I can write it here or here, doesn't matter. Both are the same. So I am not only passing the reference so that I avoid creating space again and again and all this, I mean construction, but at the same time, I would like to preserve the integrity of the passed object, and which cannot be modified by any means within this construction during the construction of the new object, right? So now what need to be done here? So first of all, you write here cout copy constructor. Just write the prompt so that when you run, you can distinguish it that this is a normal constructor and it's a copy constructor. That's the first thing. Next, what you do, so earlier it was done automatically, the copying of these values like this. So you have to do it explicitly, right? So what you do here, first you have to copy the value of a. So what do I do here? Or I mean, so the problem that got created is both are sharing the same space. So I have to explicitly create some space same as that of this. So if this is say P, and if this is say this is say M, and say this is say P. So both are having two objects each. Okay, I should not mess it up with P. So let it be Q. Okay. So if this is a Q, this is P. So this one is P, and this one is A or B. And this one is P, and this one is A or B. Okay. So earlier this was already there, 10 bytes long. P was pointing to this, and this was 10. This was 10. So now what is the first step that I need to do? So once you are within the constructor, this space has been allocated, right? So now I have to first get this allocation done. Explicitly I have to do it. So what should I write? New int what should I write here? How to get this size information? Where it is stored? What we have passed? We have passed the reference of M.
Yes, sir.
Which is known as X right now, right? So where it is stored? What is the size here? What is this? A dot X. Is that fine?
Yes, sir.
Are you getting me? This object's identity has been passed here. I'm trying to construct this object. This much is already there, this space allocation. This space allocation is already there. So what I need to do is first allocate the similar amount of space in the heap for Q also. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
So where should I get the size from? It is X dot A.
X dot A.
Right? So this is done. And where should I store it? This base address I should be storing here. That means this is Q's P. So I mean basically Q is getting constructor. So I can just write here P. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
we can write this arrow P also, that's all the same. Now after we have done this, so this part is done. So what next? So I have to just create a clone. So this will be a clone of this one, right? So now this part is done. Clone in terms of the contents, okay, without having any kind of sharing. What value I should store here? This should be the same here. So this will be copied here. What should I write? What is the step here?
It should be 10.
No. What is the statement? Whose value I'm writing here? The new objects, A value or B value, whatever you say. Hello?
A equals to x dot A.
A equals to x dot
A.
A, or you can write B because both are the same, because A and B are the name for the same space. They are multiple names, alias. So this part is done. So first is this part is done first, then this part is done second. What next need to be done? So that this becomes exactly same as this. What next? What is left? Tell me quickly, don't take so much of time. What things are left now?
First is
Which one?
10 value.
These things need to be copied here, right? These need to be copied. This part need to be copied here.
Yes.
What do I write here? For int I equals to 0, I less than what? I less than A, I plus plus. That means I have to copy this to this, then this to this, then this to this, like this, right? Only then I can have the second object as a clone of the new object as a clone of the previous object, right? So this copying need to be required. So is a for loop, and what do I write here? I write P of I. What should I write?
X dot P of I.
X dot P of I. Can you follow this? There are very few of you answering. Is that okay, or?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
This is pretty simple. Just try to understand the problem. It's not a complex thing. So the thing is, so once this is done, so now I have got this exactly same as this one. So now if you make, so after doing so if I have added this part, if this is added as a part of it, you see what I have to do here? I have to write here xyz const what should I write? Xyz ampersand, right? The prototype, and then I have added it. Once this is there, so what is the modification that you will have here? What is the modification? After this constructor and 10, after this part is done, what you will see? This construction of this n will not go silently, because it has invoked this one, because it knows that you know how to write it. So the compiler will take your version, okay? And what will be given there? Copy constructor. So this explicitly gets invoked right now, right? And once it is done, although it is 25, right? This n of display, if I display, it will be 25, but after that it will be destroyed also. This is also fine. But when you come outside and you display m.display, you do. So, destroying n now will be destroying only this part, right? Only this part gets destroyed. But this part remains intact. And not only that, this contents of the first location is also not got modified. Because when you write here, say, okay, I was just referring to Q and then N. So both are the same. Both of them they will be constructed in a similar fashion. Just there is a change in the syntax. Let it be n. Okay. So when you wrote n.fn, so these values has been changed. So this will be 25, but this remains as 10. So that's why when you display here, it will be displaying 10, and that is consistent now. Is that fine?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
So this way, this bitwise copying. So initializing object. So this is instead of bitwise copying. So instead of shallow copying, we call it as deep copying, or I mean in more details copying. So this is how it works. Okay, and this is example. So if I add this, and if I add this piece of code, so then if I write this, you see, so the only thing is I have added it later, so it is basically copy constructor, and here also it will be copy constructor. So this will be a bit changed. I have added it later, that's why it is not showing. So now this becomes consistent, and you see this 10 is still 10 here, it's not 0. So when it is essential when the class has got a pointer member. Then even though whatever you do, you don't care. If the class is having a pointer member, you must include a copy constructor in the class definition, no matter how the user is going to use it and create it and all this. If it is not having a pointer member, then you can ignore it if you want, because in that case it will not matter. I mean, it is just basically bitwise copying in the constructor also. Is that part okay?
Yes, sir.
This is a summary. So bitwise copying or shallow copying is the contents or the address value of the pointer member of the existing object is also copied to the pointer member of the newly constructed object. Here both object pointers point to the same dynamically allocated location in the heap instead of having individual copies. Okay, so this is a default choice in object to object copying. And side effect is, if one object gets modified, the memory in the heap that it points to by the other object also gets affected. And also if one object goes out of the scope, its destructor calls and then that deallocates the heap, and the other objects now pointing to garbage. So these two we have already explained in details. Solution is deep copying, which is basically write an explicit copy constructor. The explicit written constructor will separately allocate space for the new object and will copy the existing object heap contents to its heap. So it will copy it explicitly. That the one using for loop that I have done in the example. Here both the objects will have individual copies of dynamically allocated space too. So instead of, so this is basically what is done in the shallow copying, and this is what is done in the copy constructor, that is deep clone. So creating an object out of an object is you can say we are trying to create a clone object of an existing object. Okay, so this is the first part. So then I'll talk about this one. So any question till the previous one, the copy constructor. So in the stack class, we should have added a copy constructor, otherwise it is incomplete, right? But we didn't do that. So whenever you submit from now onwards, any class that is having a pointer member, it is not it's not an option, but you should include a copy constructor, otherwise marks will be deducted. Okay, from now onwards, because you know the feature and you know the importance of it. So as the designer of the class, you really don't know how the user is going to use, but to be safe, you should provide this. If the user uses it, it will be safe. If it doesn't use it, so it's not a problem. But as a user, as a class designer, you should be, so it's a good practice that you should always have a copy constructor. Is that part okay?
Yes, sir.
So this is a pretty simple topic. So I'll be just talking about function overloading, the one that we have talked and used many a times. just to revise those points. So function overloading and function default argument. So what it means? Function overloading means in C++ same function name may be given to several functions. So multiple functions can bear the same name. It is possible, but they must be varying. Now there must be varying number of number and the type of the input arguments must vary. So these are the some of the examples. So here it is int, it is int float, it is int float, and it is float float. Now the point is the function, the overloaded functions should not be differentiated only by return type. Simply because, as we earlier also mentioned, that often we call a function without bothering about what it returns. It's a normal practice. So if it happens, so I mean, if you really call these two, so I mean, when I write add 2 comma 4.5, you really don't know which one to call, either this or this one. So there is ambiguity. Okay, so that's why a functions should not be differentiated based on the return type. And as a result, maybe that we retain the first one and we ignore this one. So this one is removed. So these two cannot coexist. Okay. But if I write here add float float, this is possible. So you see there are three functions with this. One is int, another is int float, another is float float. So they basically differ in the type of the arguments, but the number of arguments are all. If I add 2 3, so which one will be called? Okay, so let me remove it. So if I call add 2 3, this will be called. If I call add 2 comma 4.5, this will be called. If I call this one, this will be called. So now there is no ambiguity. And we also know that the compiler, during its compilation process, it decorates the overloaded functions, the function names, right? So instead of add, so probably we are not sure, but probably this kind of annotation or name decoration goes on, where add underscore int and underscore int float. So it's simply parsing the prototype. You can probably figure out that how to annotate, right? So this is possible. And once this is possible, whenever you are calling and in the body, both ways that the names are changed. So now, although we see it like this as a user or the programmer, but in the back end, they all gets converted to something like this, and there is no ambiguity. So although you write three functions with the same name, but after the compiler compiles it, they basically look like three different functions with different names. So this abstraction is provided by the compiler, and that's why the user, as a user, you don't have to recall the functions with similar functionalities need to have distinct names and all. So that's a facility provided to the user, so that the user need not have to recall so many variations of the function names. If he knows that the purpose of the function or the body of the function more or less carry the same logic, and even the programmer who is writing the code also, he is also relieved. So this is a huge relief, and the burden is taken by the compiler itself. Okay, but we should be aware of not creating ambiguities. Say if I write here this function float and function int. Now if I call these two, so what is going to happen? If you compile this piece of code, you will get this error message. What it says: a call to this 2.5. So it is an attempt to call either this. So the compiler is puzzled and confused to find out which one to copy, because you see, although it is 2.5, it gets automatically typecasted to integer. So there is ambiguity here. Okay, so this is ambiguous. So it will not allow. So such calls are such things are not allowed. In the second case also, float with character also will be giving error message, and this is not allowed because of the same thing. So when you write a character, the ASCII of the character, the integer value corresponding to that character will be actually passed. Okay, sorry. And the last one, can you see this? So this is int x equals to 2. So in this function I am passing here, so both, if I write x and x, maybe my intention is to call this integer version, and here my intention is to call the reference version. But can it be distinguished by the compiler? In this case, in the last case, just looking into it, can the compiler distinguish that what is your intention?
No, sir.
So this will also give an error, and this is not allowed. So there is no, yes. Any question?
Sir, why first one is not allowed?
Now first one is also not allowed because it gets typecasted. So often we find that when you write 2.5, it will cast it as an integer and the value 2 is accepted. Whenever you write 20, if you are passing it as a float, it will be considered to be 20.0. This is generally done. So it gets automatically typecasted. And because of that, and because automatic typecasting is there, I'm class as so because of this, this is not, because automatic typecasting is already a part of the compiler, the C compilers. It just works like that. And if you try to consider this such calls in the first case, it will create ambiguity. Is that okay?
So is this typecasting only possible when there is one parameter?
I'm not getting typecasting.
Typecasting is only possible when there is one parameter, because in the previous slide there was float int and int float, there was no ambiguity, and now there is ambiguity for one parameter.
In the first case,
There was int and the second example was int float. So here also the float can be typecasted to int.
oh yeah, no. So this will be also a problem. Actually, I didn't type it and see. Yeah, this also will be a problem here. I should not take this example. I got your point. If you type this piece of code, it will not work. Yeah, I've chosen a wrong example. I should change it. Got it? I'll change it. Is that part okay? No? Any questions?
Yes, sir.
So now we see that function with default arguments. Now you see that, so let us see that if I write this piece of code, what I wrote, add int x and int y equals 2. So this is something very strange. When I'm specifying a parameter, sorry, an input argument, I never assign values to it, right? But this is something strange where I'm assigning values to input arguments to a function. So this is sometimes called the default arguments. And if this happens, so if this is a copy of the function that I have written, if I make this call and if I make this call, both will work. And that is again something something very strange. So how many functions I have written? In the first example, how many functions I have written? Function body. How many function body I have written? We can just see how many function bodies I have written. Just one body, right? But when I'm calling, I'm having two types of calls. One, when it adds, when I call add with value 2, one where I call add with value 2 comma 5. So just writing one body, it supports two distinct type of calls, right? Can you see this?
Yes, sir.
So what will be the output here in the first case and in the second case? First of all, again, this is also something very strange for a first time C++ coder. So there are a few strange things that start happening, and this is what we call it. This is something abstractness, or some kind of uh, abstraction is provided by the compiler itself, and this is all for the good of the user or the programmer. So earlier, to support this type of calls, you should have written two function bodies, two overloaded function bodies. Now you could have done it in a more compact way just by writing one piece of code, one piece of function body. But still, from the so I mean, it helps both the user and the coder. As a coder of the function class definition, you just write one piece of function body, but in turn you provide the user the flexibility to call the function in 2-3 different ways, right? So here what happens in the first case, what value will be displayed? What do you expect? So 2 will be actually, so when it so it basically calls add with value 2 comma 2. Okay, I mean this 2 is basically this 2, the first value, and it becomes 4. And in the second case, when it is 2 comma 5, it definitely it is 7, right? Is that part clear? So much of noise. So is that part clear?
Yes, sir.
So this is, as you can see here, I mean, if we provide, one can provide some default value to some input argument. So this is what we are doing. So in the first case, what it happens, what it does, so the value that you have placed will be assigned to the first argument. That is, or it will be copied to the first argument x. And the second argument is missing, but the compiler knows that there is a default argument. So default, when it is used, default is used only when you have not specified anything specific. In case of default constructors, also the same thing. If you have not mentioned any constructor, the default constructor pops up. So here, if you have not mentioned the second value, because a function must take two values, but if you have not provided the second value, the function will assume the second value to be the default 2. That's why it works. But in doing so, you have created the flexibility of calling the function in two ways, right? In the second case, in the second example, can you see the second example? What we have done? We have assigned default values to both the arguments, the first and the second. And the first argument, as you can see here, we have initialized it. The default value is a global variable, and that is also allowed. So as a default value, you can specify a constant, I mean a literal. We can specify a literal, or we can specify a global variable also. Clear? And now if I call this tree, so all these three will be allowed first of all. So what will be the output of this tree?
12.
Okay, let us consider
12.
that this is a minus. So if this is minus, then what happens? The first case is, you see, I have not mentioned anything. I have not passed any argument, but it will check this and it will find that okay, there is a sub which has got two default arguments. So even though you don't pass any argument, it can consider the default values. So z is basically 10. So 10 comma, so it will call sub 10 comma 2, and it will return here 8. 8 will be displayed. The second case, you have passed 9. So the first value, it will try to first match with right from this side. So 9 will be copied to x.
9 will be copied.
So the value 9 will be copied to x. Got it? So the matching of these arguments that you pass will be done to the body from this end. So matching from this end it will start. So you have got one argument, it will match it with x, and there is no more arguments, so it will take the default value next. So what we will do, it will call copy 9,2 and it will display here 7. In the third case we have explicitly mentioned 2, so there is no ambiguity as such. It is 2,5, so this is -3. Is that okay? So
Yes,
literals and global values may be assigned to default values. So it can be literals and global values. And in case there is a combination of default and non-default arguments. So in the first case, you see this is a default argument and this is a non-default argument. It is a combination, so the non-default arguments must appear before the default arguments. That is important. So what it means is, if you write here add int y equals to or x equals to 2, comma int x, will this be allowed? If I place the non-default values and then the non-default values, will this be allowed? This is not allowed. So this ordering is also important. Ordering means first you should, if you have got a mixture of default and non-default, you should first specify the non-default arguments followed by the default arguments. And another point is, I mean, but within those default arguments you can have it in any order, but all the non-default must precede the list of default arguments. Is that part clear? So this is an important point to note. And can we say that function with default arguments is another way of writing polymorphic codes, compact polymorphic codes, because it supports polymorphism. You see, there are 3 ways of calling the function sub, 2 ways of calling the function add, and the code is compact. You don't have to write even 3 separate bodies. Just one body supports 3 calls. So it's a compact way of implementing polymorphism. And this function with default arguments is also, in some sense, way of implementing function polymorphism. Is that clear?
yes, sir.
So finally, if I have these two, will it be allowed? You see, function int and this is, so I have got 2 functions with the same name, one that is having a non-default value and one that is having a both of the default values. So if I call this func2, will it be, can it be executed? Now the compiler says that okay, func2 means I can overload this one, but I can also try with this one also, because you see this one means 2 will be passed to assigned to x, and then this has got the default value. So this also, this or this ambiguity. So such ambiguities need to be avoided, and this will create an error message like this. So the facility of function overloading or implementing overloading using default arguments is it's very simple. The only thing is you have to make sure that you don't create ambiguous calls. That's the point. You yourself have to think that how the user could have called it. So after writing the list of our functions, function bodies or the overloaded versions, you have to just look into it before actually going for compilation. Look into the prototype and see that whether you yourself can create ambiguous calls. Definitely the compiler will then start shouting that something went wrong. Okay. So just one small say this one. You can all recall that stack code, right? It will just not take more than 5 minutes. You can all recall that stack code. This was the stack code, the stack class. Can you see this? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So first of all, if I would like to have this type of call supported, so generally this also will work, right? If I run this will also work. You see, yes, this will work, but this will not work in a proper way that we want. So this is work in a suspicious way. So if I would like to have it in a proper way, so what should I do? I can write what I have to write? I have to write because you see we have got a pointer member. Even in the stack class, I have to write special constructor. What is that? A copy constructor. What should I write? Stack. What is the signature? Signature means right. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
So my objective is to upgrade. Is to enhance the previous stack class that we have written, so that it includes a copy constructor also, because it has got a. What should I write? So it's a copy constructor that I'm writing. So what should be the input?
Const
Terminal
stack.
type const
Stack.
stack and then
Reference
that's
and
all.
person.
So now I'll copy it here and I'll define it outside. So I write here, this is copy constructor. Okay. Now here let me write it as S. So C out copy constructor. Then what will be the steps? What will be the steps of construction? You see what we are doing? The similar things we'll be doing here. What we have decided, the default, you see, if we don't pass anything, okay, so in this case, what should I do now? Size should be size of the new one, the newer stack object will be same as that of the this stack object S. Where should I get it? S dot size. Is that fine? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Then P, whose P, the new object's P should be equal to new int stack dot S dot size, right? Is that fine? So next top equals to, so now what should be the value of top? Top should be equal to S dot top. That is also fine. What is the value of n? N should be equal to S dot n, right? And then what next? What is left? Now the previous existing stack may have some values inside. Maybe it's already containing say 4-5 elements into it, and the new stack right from the beginning should be having the same contents, right? So and I have to basically copy the contents one by one from the previous stack to the new stack. Is that fine? Hello? So I should
Yes,
be
sir.
writing I
Yes, sir.
equals to 0. I less than, what should I write now? Now I've all copied the value, so I can write my in my own way. But P is equal. Anything else required? Did I miss anything? So here I am calling this, and I would expect that prompt should appear. Earlier there was no such prompt, so now if I compile, where is the output? Which one I'm trying? Default outputs.
So, sir, we have to put a scope resolution in the copies constructor also.
Okay, otherwise it has considered to be a global one. Yeah, that is the problem. So now see, it is still working because it says that this tag is just a global function. It's a normal global function, not a part of this, class definition. Displaying. Where is the call? Is 5 is 1. Oh, sorry. I'm just trying. I'm compiling something else. Test.cpp. Yes, what it says P. P is not okay. So what is P? Oh, we have got A, I think, not P. It should be A. A of this, and this also will be A of I, and this also will be A of I. Okay. Can you see this? Copy constructor gets invoked.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is done. And instead of, you see, now the point is instead of having these three separate constructors to get things constructed, you see one that is void, one that is having one integer, one that is two integer. We can write a compact version of, we can write a single constructor, you see, with default arguments. So then what I should mention here, int x equals, see the default value is 10. If you don't specify what is the next default value, it is -1, right? The default value we have set to -1, you see here where it is. So here we can have it as y equals to -1. So this default value I just set it there. So it's a default constructor with default arguments. Now size is A and this is size. Okay, this is size, fine. Top equals to -1 and then n equals to -1. And what will be the next value? So this will be the default value. So this will be added automatically. So what I say is if I don't specify any values, so automatically this -1 will be added as A of 0. And top will be plus plus and n will be plus plus. If I have got just one value, that means I am specifying the size of the stack. So in that case, that x will be considered to be the size. If I have considered two values, that means it will be constructing the stack of size with respect to the first argument, and the second argument will be added as the first element of the stack. Is that part clear? Now let us see if it works. Okay, some mistakes are made. Okay, so we should have removed this part also. Is that okay? Got the change? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So I made two changes in my existing stack class. First thing is, because there is a pointer member, I just added a copy constructor like this, having the signature const, class name and ampersand. And then I have replaced three overloaded constructor methods by just one, which is having default arguments. You see, so that's the level of compactness that it provides. And still you support all these calls, all these with one argument, with no arguments, and everything is getting supported, but you just write one piece of constructor. So the compactness of the code, so that should be the final code. So it becomes compact, still it is flexible enough for the users. From the user's perspective, the user can still call multiple ways of calling. So here we have, so in this class I have illustrated the use of functions with default arguments. In this case, the constructor with default arguments. We have talked about function overloading and how ambiguities may lead to compilation errors, and also we have talked about copy constructor, a special way of constructing objects from existing objects. Okay, so any questions? Do you have any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, so tomorrow I'll take a class and there I'll write the linked list code.
Okay, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir.